was always the Jags. It was always the Jags. It was always the Jags. Always the Jags.
Welcome into Always the Jags, your number one podcast for everything Jacksonville, everything Jaguars, everything Duval. We are in the offseason. Had the Super Bowl hangover. Had my episode on it. Talked about it a little bit. It was fun to watch, but man, it's like, I don't know if it's because I'm excited for our next season, but like, it was hard to even care about it when I'm like, I just want to see Jaguars football. You know what I mean? Like, and I love football, but like, I don't want to see the Seahawks and the Patriots. I want to talk Jaguars. Let's talk Jaguars. So that's exactly what we're going to do. I took a little bit of a break. You know, it took some time to recover from that Bills game, and then did a little episode on the Super Bowl, and just, you know, took a second to reset. Did a lot of mock drafting. Thought a lot about free agency. Kind of got all my thoughts together. Usually when the Jaguars go into free agency, I have like a whole plan of like who we're going to get and why and how much it's going to cost and all this stuff. I haven't had as much because, first of all, this is a very weak free agency class, if you ask me, in my opinion. I feel like, it might also just seem weak because the Jaguars are actually strong right now. You know what I mean? Like, I think for almost every free agent, there's someone on our roster, or someone already on our roster who's just better. Like, I'm glad the market doesn't think Travis Etienne is the best running back on the market. Like, I'm glad the market is saying that he's one of the lower ones, but he's the best, if you ask me. I mean, Kenneth Walker is good, so is Breece Hall, some of those other guys. I think Travis Etienne is the best running back on the market. Devin Lloyd is by far the best linebacker on the market. And it's very rare that the Jaguars will have players that are kind of at the top of the market in the offseason. And then I look at some of the, top guys. Trey Hendrickson has been better than Josh Allen in the past, but just based upon age alone, I'd rather have Josh Allen. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like we're in the situation where free agency doesn't look that appealing. So I'm going to try to go through my mock free agency. I did a couple of them, and these are the conclusions I reached based upon the guys we have leaving and the guys that we want to keep around. So it's I get to play the GM, right? If I was James Gladstone, here's what I would do in free agency. And then I'm going to do a pre-free agency mock draft, because free agency will affect my mock draft once we actually get there, because it doesn't open until March 11th. And I'll drop that in a little bit. And then I'll probably do a few different post-free agency mock drafts as we get closer to April 25th. And then we'll just hit the summertime. We'll just be in the doldrums. So until then, let's go into free agency, because the new league year opens on March 11th. So, couple of moves the Jaguars are making. First, hopefully before we get to free agency, in my plan, I guess who should I start with? I'm going to start with making some cap space, right? I'm going to run through this using a mock draft, kind of like a mock draft simulator, but it's like a mock free agency simulator. Now, the first thing is, I don't know how correct these numbers are, because I've seen numbers that say as high as the Jaguars are $29 million over the cap and then $8 million under the cap. And so I think part of that is like post-June designations and things like that. So what I'm going to do is go through and kind of make decisions, and we'll see how much cap space that ends up saving on each move. Okay, so the first move I'm going to make, I'm going to extend Eric Armstead to a 2-year, $25 million deal. So it's $12.5 million each year. It's going to lower his cap hit for this year and increase it, and then spread out kind of the rest of his money along with that $12 million around the next 2 years with a little bit more in guaranteed money. Now, this is a good deal for Eric Armstead because he won't really have to worry about hitting the open market after this year. He gets some more guaranteed, money in his pocket. And some people have saying let's do him as like a post-June 1 cut. I don't think I want to cut him. I think he's provided a lot of value to us. And I think having a deep defensive tackle rotation position, and I think is very valuable. And I think I'd like James Gladstone to move in all the chips, move it all in and kind of shoot for the moon right now and do as much as we can to keep our roster going. If we could do it for like an extension of $10 million a year, that would be ideal. But I did 12.5 because I think it would be harder to convince him to take a $10 million. Because remember, he left the 49ers and came to us because he was unwilling to take a pay cut. So in this scenario, I'm kind of giving him a pay cut, but I'm extending him at a lower rate. Same thing we did with Foye. We initially signed him for 15, and then we were able to extend him for 10. So we signed Eric Armstead for 17. Let's see if we can extend him for 12. That's going to save us about $6 million on the cap. Our next move, I am going to extend Devon Hamilton. And for Devon Hamilton, it's going to be a 2-year, $12 million deal. So about $6 million per year. That's probably a good rate for, a veteran defensive tackle like Devon Hamilton, a nose tackle, who doesn't bring a whole lot of pass rushing juice, but he's been very good against the run. And after his extension that we gave him, he's had a great bounce back year because he hasn't, since we extended him after drafting him, he really has barely been on the field. But this year seemed like he was finally back on the field and finally back to playing himself and really bridging, stuffing those gaps. And, making our run defense the best in the NFL, frankly. So we're going to go ahead and extend him because he's going to be our starting nose tackle. So let's go ahead and do that, and that's going to save about $3 million on the cap for this year. Extend and restructure Devon Hamilton. Next up, we're going to make some roster cuts. Now, these ones aren't very tough to make. I'm going to go ahead and cut Chuma Edoga. Even when he was on the field, it just wasn't very good. Cole Van Lanen obviously outplayed him and got him an extension. I think we'll have some guys that we can draft to be ready to play that swing tackle role. So Chuma Edoga is out of here. I'm also going to cut Johnny Munt, our backup tight end, and Hunter Long, our other backup tight end. If you see I've been going through the draft a little bit too, and that's kind of helping me make these free agency moves. There's a couple of tight ends in the draft that I really like that I think will replace Hunter Long and Johnny Munt. And I think Quinton Morris has shown enough as a blocker. He could still, and he caught a touchdown, which was nice, right? He could still use some refining as a pass catcher, but he's shown me enough as a blocker to kind of move him up our tight end depth chart. And then I'm also going to bring in a rookie, which you'll see a little bit later. But for right now, we're cutting both of our backup tight ends. Next up, we're going to extend Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne is too good for us to let him leave this football team. I strongly feel that way. And if you don't believe me, and if you think we can get running backs anywhere, I know people are waiting for Bashal Tuten, and I'm excited for him too. But watch the touchdown run against the 49ers, and look at the move Travis Etienne puts on the defensive back that allows him to take 40 more yards to the house. Now, you could argue the defensive back took a bad angle, but if you watch Travis Etienne's footwork, he's got 6 guys behind him, and he has the intelligence to make the defensive back make you think he's going one way, and then he cuts up the field the other way, completely tripping up the guy and adding 40 more yards to take it to the house. That he's gotten this level of intelligence that he just understands the field and understands what running backs do. And he understands Liam Coen's offense. Let's keep him around for 3 more years. I think we can do it at $12.5 million. That's right under James Cook's deal. I don't see why we don't make that deal. I think that's perfect. If he was looking to get 15 or more, okay, maybe I'd say let him go. But especially in this era of running backs, I don't think he's going to get 15 million or more. I think 12.5 should be enough to keep him around. And, I will probably be upset if he ends up signing somewhere else for 12.5 because I've seen numbers as low as 7 per year. If you can get ETN for $7 million a year, you run that up and you sign him right now. I would be even like $10 million. The highest I'd probably be willing to go is 12.5. But I'd be okay with 13, right? 14 is it's tougher. I'd probably lower the guaranteed money if it was going to be 14 million. But for right now, 12.5 million just makes the most. Next, we have Andrew Wingard. I'm going to bring him back. I think we used too many 3 safety looks to not feel comfortable having Andrew Wingard there. Because in theory, our starters next year could be Caleb Ransaw, Antonio Johnson, and Eric Murray. I think having Andrew Wingard behind him who can play all of those roles would be very helpful. Because if not, then we just have Ryan Lane, right? And that could be tough. Now, again, there's ways you can shift up the defense so you don't always need 3 safeties to like back everybody up. But overall, I think it's a good idea to bring back Wingard. He's just so much energy too. I mean, the podcast is kind of named after him. We ended up giving him a $4.8 million a year deal for 2 years. So about $5 million a year, which I think should be fine. And lastly, we have the big one, Devin Lloyd, the linebacker, our superstar free agent, who is probably going to blow some of these numbers out of the water. Now, if I'm James Gladstone, I'm looking to give Devin Lloyd Zach Bond money. So I'm going to start the negotiations at $14 million a year. Negotiate guarantees, how many years, whatever. And I'd be willing to go up to $17 million a year. That's the Zach Bond number. Now, if Devin Lloyd is looking for Fred Warner type of money, I'd say we let him go. Anything over 17, I'd say we let him go. Because he's had about the same impact on us as Zach Bond did for the Eagles. Now, it's a good time for Devin Lloyd to be hitting the market because he knows he's going to be the top linebacker and could probably easily clear $20 million a year. And Zach Bond, when he could have hit the market, but the Eagles decided to re-sign him at 17. And this year, I don't think it was as good as his years in the past. But it's tough, right? It's tough because you don't want a guy that had I wish we could franchise tag him. That would be the perfect world, but we can't. So I'm willing to offer him $17 million a year for a 3-year deal. I will say, again, if he ends up wanting more than that, then I would say I'm okay with we could sign Nakobe Dean. I think he would be a perfect replacement for Devin Lloyd. I think we could get him on like 11 to 12 million, maybe a 1-year deal, or maybe offer him a modest multi-year deal. If James Gladstone really believes in him. But if Anthony Campanile can get the best out of Devin Lloyd, I think he can get the best out of Nakobe Dean as well because they have a similar athletic profile and good instincts in coverage. The problem with Devin Lloyd is that coverage linebackers are hard to find. Those instincts are hard to build. And Anthony Campanile did it with Devin Lloyd. Again, which is going to make it tougher for us to keep him because he finally came into his own this year. And that's why, though, I think the Jaguars should put a lot of effort into trying to retain him because, again, these kind of guys, instinctual coverage linebackers, don't grow on trees, right? Everybody is a thumper. Foye Oluokun, thumper. Jack Kaiser, thumper. Ventrell Miller, thumper. Most of these guys are thumpers, linebackers that make you feel it when you hit them. But there's a difference between a guy who can drop in coverage. And Devin Lloyd showed that he can, as evident by the 5.5 interceptions. So I would say it's probably more important for us to retain Devin Lloyd than it is to retain Travis Etienne. But I think it's more realistic that we retain Etienne than it is that we retain Lloyd. But let's say that we're able to knock out a $17 million deal per year that allows us to keep him around for the next 3 years. All right, so at this point, according to this mock, we were only about $8 million under the cap. So again, I don't know how accurate this mock is. But with these moves that I've made, I've been able to save, and with the extensions, now we're right at the cap line and about $0.7 million under the cap, right? So the last move that I'm making, I'm going to trade Walker Little. I know James Gladstone said all the line. He's planning on all the offensive linemen coming back next year. We're not going to do that. We are going to trade Walker Little. So, and again, it's hard to say like who would want to take him on because he did give up 9 sacks last year. If we're able to trade him, we save $7 million on the cap, and the other team's cap hit for him will only be $7 million. So getting a starting offensive tackle whose cap number is only $7 million is not that easy, right? And we can do it for cheap. Trade him for a 7th. Let's trade him for a swap of 7ths. Whatever it takes to get him off our roster and get that cap hit off of the roster. Primary candidate right now, probably the Browns, because their entire offensive line is free agents, and Deshaun Watson is eating up a majority of their cap space. I wouldn't be surprised if they spend their 2 first-round picks on offensive linemen, because I don't know how they're supposed to re-sign anybody without any cap space, and they're going to need some cheaper alternatives to be able to come in. So, and they were able to use a lot of draft capital last year, so they may not be hurting for it. So I think, if someone's willing to give you a 6th, great. We got a 7th for Fred Johnson, right? So, a 6 for Walker Little is not crazy. I don't think there's any world where it'll be a 5th, because again, the salary comes into play. So I would prefer not to have to do like a salary dump situation where like we offer someone Walker Little and a 5th in exchange for a 7th, basically giving them a draft pick to take on some of the cap space. because I think we do kind of need our draft picks after going through the draft. But hopefully we can unload him to an offensive line needy team, someone who just kind of wants to have some depth in place. I think the Browns, like I said, are a primary candidate. No one else really jumps off the page for me as a team that's just going to need offensive linemen. But yeah, the Browns jump off as the primary target for us to try to offload Walker Little onto. But hopefully we're able to trade him and get out of that $7 million. For some reason, the trade number hit isn't as bad as the releasing hit, so we can't just release him outright. However, while I did make some deals in this free agency cycle, most of the deals that James Gladstone made last year are basically 2-year deals. So with this draft class that's going to be coming up soon too, my anticipation is like Ezra Cleveland, Robert Hainsey, Patrick McCarry, definitely Walker Little. It kind of depends on Jordan Lewis. We'll see. But like those 3 guys probably won't even be here in 2027 because all of them will have manageable dead cap and big savings if we release them. So even if we go under the cap next year, we've got some easy cuts to make, and that's why we've been drafting offensive linemen to kind of be ready to step into that role. Jonah Mannheim takes over for Hainsey. Milam takes over for Patrick McCarry. Hopefully we'll have someone else waiting in the rings to take over for Ezra Cleveland. And that'll free up some space to allow for some of those bigger cap hits. So that's my free agency plan, right? To recap it a little bit, I'm going to extend Devon Walker and Eric Armstead, which lowers their cap hits by a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and release Johnny Munt, Chuma Adoga, and Hunter Long. That clears up altogether. That clears up about $10 million in cap space, probably those cuts right there. If we need to, we can also make some and extending Eric Armstead and Devon Hamilton. Each one cleared up about $4 million in cap space, $5 million roughly. So that's $20 million in cap space I just cleared up. And again, we can restructure Trevor Lawrence and kind of kick the can further down the road. I like where his contract's out right now, so if I can do it without restructuring him, I will, right? So that's why I'd rather extend Armstead and extend Devon Hamilton rather than restructure Trevor Lawrence. Although, after this year, you do feel a lot better about Trevor Lawrence, so restructuring him to push it off into the future because you know he's going to be here for a long time is much more feasible after this year than it was last year. Last year, I wouldn't have wanted to do that. This year, yeah, that's fine. So those are some of the moves that freed up cap space, and then we're going to go ahead and trade Walker Little. So if we're able to do all of that, overall, that's $27 million in cap space. Now, again, some reports say we're only $9 million under. Other reports are saying that we're like $28 million under. So if we're able to do that, we would get right at the cap if the $28 million reports are accurate. And then we'll probably need to make a couple moves here and there to free up room to sign our draft class, right? But also, again, this does include re-signing Travis Etienne somewhere in there and re-signing Devin Lloyd. So if we're able to do those moves and just keep those are the 2 main guys. Now, I am sad to let Monteric Brown go. I will say if we don't get Devin Lloyd, but we're able to sign Nakobe Dean, let's go ahead and re-sign Monteric Brown as well. But yeah, I will be sad to see Monteric Brown go, but there are some draft prospects that I really like that I think can compete for the cornerback 2 spot against Jerry and Jones, and I feel okay about that. And I also feel okay because I know if Jerry and Jones or the draft really don't work out, Jordan Lewis can slide to cornerback 2, and I can have Antonio Johnson play the nickel if need be. So I've got some flexibility there where I don't feel like I have to shell out money to keep Monteric Brown in. But again, Devin Lloyd, there's nobody like him on this roster. I don't think there's anybody like him in the draft. Same thing with Travis Etienne. I don't think there's anybody like him on the roster. I don't think there's anybody like him in the draft. So I think that's why we got to keep him. So those are my thoughts on free agency. Let me know what you think down below. And so like, let's say that it's more like under 9 million. Obviously the big fish to go after would be John Franklin Myers. If you could get him on a $15 million deal, I would absolutely love to bring him in. And if I do that, I'm actually probably still extending Eric Armstead and Devon Hamilton. I would maybe consider cutting Devon Hamilton in that instance, just completely cutting him. But he's so good against the run, and I don't know if John Franklin Myers has shown that. And not to mention, I would rather add John Franklin Myers than like subtract Eric Armstead or I suppose you could bring in him and get rid of Eric Armstead as a post June 1 cut, because I think it'd save like 16 million, and he would basically replace Eric Armstead. So that is an option. It's just tougher to fathom because like when guys go to different places, like we've already seen Eric Armstead play well here, albeit he has been hurt, right? And it's hard to know, like, is John Franklin Myers going to be that much better than Eric Armstead? But if you think there's a chance that he could be, because what we're lacking right now in our defensive line is pass rushing juice. And you'll see that a little bit more as I get to the mock draft. But we need run stuffers, right? So if John Franklin Myers and Eric Armstead are just as good at the run as each other, then that's an even swap, right? But if Eric Armstead is a little bit better against the run, but John Franklin Myers is a better passer, then you might want to keep them both so you can swap them out for passing versus running situations. Like if you can get the defense into 3rd and 10, I want our pin the ears back guys on that field, right? Josh Allen, Trayvon, Walker, John Franklin Myers maybe, and then Eric Armstead or whoever else it ends up being. Or we move Trayvon Walker inside, maybe have our draft pick come out on that field, which again, you'll see as I get to the draft. So let me know your thoughts on this mock draft. Let me know your thoughts on this free agency period. Who do you want to see the Jaguars retain? Who do you want to see us target? And again, unlike previous years where we've kind of signed up the entire league, there's only one player I'd consider targeting. There are some good cornerback twos out there, Jamel Dean, some other guys, but I don't think I want to pay $15 million to them. Again, when I look at this draft, it's a strong corner draft. It is a strong corner draft. So I think if I'm James Gladstone, I got 3 third-round picks. I'm feeling good at what I can do at corner, but I'm looking at the draft and I'm saying there's no way to replace Devin Lloyd, and there's really not a way to replace Travis Etienne because no one has the burst and agility and intelligence that he has. And he's gotten so much better at pass protection. It's insane. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think, and never forget, it was always the Jags. Thank you so much for watching Always the Jags. Make sure you like and subscribe down below. Check out some of these other videos that I'm sure you'll be interested in as we chase Duval greatness. Thank you for joining us again, and until next time.